A lot of the people that I work with are confused about what a boundary actually is. But boundaries are one of the best tools that we have for taking care of ourselves and creating our life the way that we want it to be. And a lot of them think that a boundary is like you must do this thing. That's not a boundary. It might be a demand. It might be an attempt at control or manipulation or coercion, but it's different from a boundary. A boundary is, I'm not available for this thing. A boundary is, if you, then I. A boundary is about letting people know and also letting yourself know how you're going to respond to situations, to questions, to challenges, how you're going to use your energy. It's not predicated on how other people need to respond. It's what you're going to do about it to take responsibility for your own happiness and your own wellness and you getting the things that you actually want for yourself. Okay, my assistants and I are going to help you understand the difference between expectations, requests, and boundaries and how they all work together. So an expectation is something, as you might guess, that you expect. It's the way that you think things are supposed to happen. It's the way you think things are supposed to go. It's what you think is going to happen, and that's how it's supposed to be. A request is when you communicate that expectation to someone else and you give them a chance to say yes or no. For example, I might expect that people are going to be on time when they tell me they're going to meet me somewhere. And my request might be, if you're running late, would you please call me or text me and let me know? A boundary is different. A boundary is to let you know what I'm going to do, and also for me to know what I'm going to do, if that expectation and that request are not met. And it's about my behavior. It's not about your behavior. So, for example, if we're supposed to meet and you're 15 minutes late and you haven't called me, I'm going to leave. That's my boundary. And that's how they're different. One of the places I often see my clients get really hung up is on the way that expectations, requests, and boundaries play out in their long-term relationships or their marriages. And so, for example, you may have an expectation that your partner is going to do specific things around the house, and you may have zero interest in doing them yourself. But unless you have made a request to your partner and gotten their agreement that they're going to do those things, you have an expectation that may not be met, and it maybe shouldn't be. Right? So we want to know if we have stuff that's just like in our head that we're expecting people to like somehow magically intuit, but we haven't actually communicated it to them. When that happens, when we're expecting things that we haven't asked for and just expecting that people will somehow know, it creates a lot of frustration. It creates a lot of disappointment. It creates a lot of resentment. But the problem is that you're the one who created that by not articulating the thing that you want, and there's a better way. Expectations, requests, and boundaries in relationships, there are a number of things that need to happen for that to go smoothly, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually pretty easy and things do go pretty smooth most of the time. So if you have an expectation that your partner is going to do something, let them know. Make a request. Are you willing to do this? Are you willing to take this on? And get a yes or no. And if they're not, then you can decide to take it on yourself. You can decide that that thing's not worth doing. You can decide to outsource it to someone else, whatever. But you know what you're dealing with at that point. If you haven't made the request and you're just expecting them to know, that doesn't go very well because most of us are not mind readers. Now, where boundaries come in is that if someone has said they're going to do something and you've said you're not going to, simply don't do the thing if it doesn't get done. We may say, I'm not going to do the dishes tonight. I'm not available for that. And that's our boundary. But then if the dishes aren't done by like 10 o'clock or the way we want, we go and do it anyway. So we're not honoring our own boundary when that happens. One of the most common complaints that I hear from my clients is they're not honoring my boundaries, whether it's their partner or their kid or their coworker. They're not honoring my boundaries. They should be honoring my boundaries. Here's the thing about boundaries though. Your boundaries are your responsibility. It's not other people's job to enforce your boundaries. And if you don't enforce it, it's not actually a boundary. It's just like a thing you said that one time but didn't actually mean. So if you tell your partner, for example, I'm not going to do the dishes tonight because they agreed that they were going to do the dishes, and then you go and do the dishes anyway because it didn't get done when you thought it was supposed to get done, you're the one who chose not to honor your boundary about not being available for the dishes, not them. They're just doing whatever they're going to do. So notice the places where you might be expecting other people to do the work that's actually yours to do. It's your responsibility to hold and follow through with the thing that you said that you were going to do. So listen, if you've made a habit of not honoring your own boundaries by just letting people do whatever and not following through with what you said, I totally get it because that happens to me sometimes too. And this is a really normal reaction. And it's particularly normal for women because we've been conditioned to be quiet and compliant and codependent and like pleasing to everybody all the time. And saying no and holding a boundary that other people don't like isn't exactly quiet and compliant and codependent and all of those things. That's like being a bad girl, right? And so we've been conditioned not to do that. But we can learn a new pattern of relating to people. And for you to say, I'm not available for that thing, and then to not be available for that thing, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a bitch. It doesn't make you selfish. It makes you someone who keeps the promises that you make to yourself. And it helps you teach other people how to treat you. So if you're ready to make a shift in that, you can start by keeping the promises that you make to yourself. Boundaries are about what we're going to do and how we're going to respond to certain situations. And the entire point of a boundary is to draw a line and to be very clear with ourselves and with other people about what we're available for. So a boundary might be something like, if you call me after 10 o'clock, I'm not going to answer the phone. But the expectation is that that person's probably going to do it, and you've already let them know how you're going to respond to it. Now, they may stop eventually, but if you say, if you call me after 10 o'clock, I'm not going to answer the phone, and you continue to answer the phone after 10 o'clock, that's you not honoring your own boundary. And when that happens, it teaches people that you don't actually mean the thing that you said and that they can just do whatever. And so the best way to teach them something different is to honor that boundary for yourself and to keep the promises you made about how you're going to protect your energy and how you're going to protect your space. So you can start small with stuff like not answering the phone, or you can go big. It's totally up to you. When we behave a certain way over a period of time, people begin to expect that that's the way that things are because that's the way that we've been showing up. And so if you say, hey, I'm not going to do that thing, but then you turn around and do that thing, you're just teaching the other person that when you say you're not going to do it, you don't mean it. Now, like that's just neutral. Like it's just a thing that happens. It's not a problem. But where things can get a little bit frustrating is when you start doing things differently and you actually hold the boundary and you don't do the thing that you said you were going to do. People may push up against that. They may react to it. They may try to like get you to fall back into the old behavior because that's what is familiar to them. And that's what you've like trained them to expect. And so they're just trying to line stuff back up. And it doesn't mean anything's wrong. It's like the same thought process that happens when you move the silverware drawer. And then for the next 6 months, you keep going to the drawer that the silverware used to be in when you need a fork. It's not a problem. It's just a thing that happens.